G'day everyone, this is Andrew Price here from BlenderGuru.com and welcome to another Blender tutorial. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to create a muzzle flash or flare effect, whatever you want to call it. So this effect was something that I used in my short film, The Ballad of the M4 Carbine, that I created almost exactly 1 year ago to date. And since then, I've had lots of requests from people asking me how I created that muzzle flash effect. So I thought I'd finally get around to creating a tutorial on it. Now that short that I created was actually, I created it using Blender 2.49. But for this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to create that in Blender 2.5, which means that there'll be new techniques, new improved techniques upon what was actually shown in the short. So you'll be seeing sort of like a 2.0 version of the technique that I used. So this is the finished result, what you can see right here. As you can see, the flare looks a little bit better than what was in my short. Yeah, so let's have a look at the finished file here of what it looks like. Now, as you can see, you've got these sort of like porcupine objects that are sticking out sort of the barrel, and if you animate it, you'll see that they all sort of rapidly change in scale and size and things like that. And then if you have a look at the animation data, it's a graph editor here. Don't be worried if this confuses you all right now. I know it looks very complex, but basically I just want to show you how it all pulses just in time with the rate of fire of the gun. So I'll be showing you how to do all this in this tutorial. So let's start by opening up the starting muzzle flash file. So you can download this off BlenderGuru.com just above this video if you're viewing this on the website. Now, the first thing you need to do before you do anything in Blender is you need to locate some reference images. This is very important. A lot of people don't do this, but I highly recommend you do. Having a look at some real photos of real muzzle flashes, that will give you a lot better idea before you start doing anything in Blender. For any project, really, I recommend looking at reference photos, but particularly for this because it's something that you rarely ever see. Now, as you can see just by looking at these photos, they vary a lot in their shape, their size, and their brightness. It also depends on the gun. As you can see, obviously, the bigger the gun, the bigger the muzzle flash, and also the longer lasting the flash appears for. So if it's a smaller gun, it's often very, very hard to catch that on film because it appears for only a quick second. But if it's a tank, for example, then obviously it's a lot bigger and it lasts a lot longer. So yeah, so the type of flare we're going to be going for is one that's from a rifle, an M4 Carbine. I've got a few other photos here, but this is the one we're sort of going to be referencing off. So as you can see, I mean, it's sort of hard to sort of get what the actual shape of the muzzle flare looks like because you have to take into account, you know, what sort of aperture and exposure the camera was, because, you know, that could look, you know, very big and very glowing like that, but it could also just be the way that the camera was set up that you can't really see like the actual clear detail of the flash. But for the sake of this, I think this is a pretty good representation of how it looks. Okay, so once you've got an idea of the muzzle flash you're going to be creating, head back into Blender, and we can start work. So to create the actual flare effect, we're going to be using a solid object, a solid mesh. We're not going to be using the smoke simulator. It's not done with particles, anything tricky like that. It's just basically a mesh that is deformed in a way to look like a muzzle flash, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by adding a cylinder object. By default, it gives you 32 vertices. I'm just going to change that to 20. It's a little bit more easier to work with. And I'm just going to scale it down. And I'm going to position it, let's see, just at the front of this barrel here, okay? You can even place it slightly inside it if you wanted to. That looks pretty good. And, oh, make sure it lines up as well. Okay. Now, next, just grab one end of these vertices here and just pull it out to however far you want the actual flare to be. Okay, so let's have a look. Something about there, that looks about right to me. And then Ooh, am I looking at? Here we go. And then you just need to perform a few cuts along the side here. So just press Control R, and then just using the mouse scroller, you can increase the number of cuts. I'm gonna make the number of cuts about there. And then basically we just want to shape this just by scaling up these middle parts here. So you can do this by turning on the proportional editing by pressing O, and make sure it's scaled down a little bit as well. Just to something like this. But basically you just want to make it so that the end pieces are very small and the middle pieces are quite large. Now you might want to experiment with the sort of shape you go for. And again, keeping an eye on what sort of gun you're using. Check your reference photos. But this is around about the shape you wanna go for. So something that's sort of quite big near the where the barrel actually exits out, and then near the end it sort of fades off. So if you actually turn it sort of like that, and if you were to rotate it like that, it sort of looks like a candle flame essentially. So once you've got that general shape, you can well, yeah, that's basically all the modeling that we need to do. Now, I mean, if you were to you know, apply a material and render this now, that would look really fake, because it's very obvious to the viewer the shape of the flash, okay? In that doesn't really look like a burst of a flame. It looks like, I don't know, something just squeezed out the end there, okay? So to create more randomized, deformed shapes, what we're going to do is we're going to add a displacement modifier, okay? Now, what this is going to ask for is a texture, and then it's going to deform the mesh according to that texture, okay? So to just create a texture, with that same object there selected, we're going to add a new material, not going to change anything here, switch straight to the texture panel and add a new texture, okay? Now, we don't want this texture to apply to the actual material, okay? So uncheck that box there, because we're only going to be using this as a displacement texture, okay? So I'm going to use the default cloud texture here, and I'm going to change the size to 0.1 and the depth to 0, okay? And now if we go here, actually we need to give it a name as well, flash. And if we go here and just find that texture that we just created, like that, and you can't see much of a change there, but if you increase that strength size there, then you can see that the mesh is being deformed according to that texture. Now, there's not much detail there because you haven't got many vertices to work with. So what we're going to do is add a subdivision modifier. We're going to place it on top of the displacement modifier and just increase the view count to 2 as well. Now, if we increase this this strength size here to something like that, so it looks very much like a porcupine. Now, I mean, basically, you just want to make it look like a burst of a flame has come out there, like licking flames are coming out the side. So, I mean, it looks quite awful now, like doesn't look anything like a muzzle flash. But, you know, as you get on later and we add materials and do stuff in the compositor, then it's really going to start taking its form. Now, there is a problem. You'll notice that at the end here, and also here near where the barrel is, it's quite ugly. There's it's all sort of bunched up and pinched in, and it looks really awful. The middle part looks fine. Now, the reason for that is that these vertices here at the end points, they're a lot closer together than these middle points. So as such, the displacement modifier is displacing it or warping it the same as if it's over here, and as a result it's now all overlapping on each other, okay? So to fix that problem, you can see here in this displacement modifier, you've got the option for vertex group, okay? So we're going to be making some change. So we're going to press Control Tab, okay? So this will enter us into the weight paint mode, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint, if we press T, you can bring up the these paint options here. I'm going to make sure spray is enabled, make a few of these changes. I'm just going to paint this middle part here, like so. And then if we exit out of that and then go here to the vertex group, you can see you've got an option called group. Then just check that. And then as you can see, the end pieces now are there left untouched, and only the middle part is changed. Now that doesn't look very good right there. So I'm going to go back into weight paint mode. I'm just going to maybe just make this other part here sort of a different white color to something like that. And that looks pretty good to me. Yeah, something like that. Excellent. All right, so now you've got the basic shape of the flare. Now, if we go back to our reference photo here, actually I'm not sure if it's actually shown in this, but generally this type of the rifle, the one with a nozzle that is that's like this, where you've got little holes coming out the side, a lot of the times you'll have hot air or hot gas, whatever it is, sort of eject out the sides as well. And that's where you'll get that sort of star-looking effect that you see a lot in Hollywood movies. Yeah, and you get different shapes and sizes of the flash depending on how the nozzle looks. So for this one, I'm going to make it so that there's 3 little mini flashes sort of coming out the sides as well. So what I'm going to do is just duplicate this muzzle flash that we've already put in there. I'm going to rotate it by 90 degrees. Just position it maybe like that. And then I'm going to scale this down, okay? Because obviously we don't want it too big. Something like that. Looks about right. And I'm just also going to... let's turn off proportional editing. Just going to scale this down a little bit, because we don't want it to look too obvious. And also going to change the strength of the displacement modifier as well. Maybe not too bad. Maybe that could be all right. And then once that's done, just going to duplicate that and rotate it so that you've got ones coming out the sides here and another one over here. Now this is optional, and if this is a handgun, if you're making a muzzle flash for a handgun, then you would not have these little effects coming out there. You just have one coming out the barrel. And also, if you have a look in reference photos, you might see a flare or a flash coming out near where the hammer actually hits the bullet. For revolvers and things like that, you often get that effect. So yeah, just have a look, you know, at the reference photos for what type of gun you are creating a flare for. But that looks pretty good to me for what we're going to be going for. Okay, now the next step is the materials. So go to the material panel, and as I explained at the beginning, when I created the short, I used Blender 2.49, and the flares that you saw in that looked very hard, like very real, solid objects. That was because I didn't really have any way of sort of faking like a real flame that you could sort of half see through, things like that, because I was using Blender 2.49. Now that I'm using Blender 2.5, we can use a new improved technique by implementing volumetric shading, okay? So if you see here, we're in the material panel, and we're going to click volume there, okay? And you'll see the 3D view change to a sort of soft, spongy looking cloud thing. Now, the volumetric cloud thing will enable it to, at certain angles, like near where the flame's edge there, that's going to be more see-through than these more denser parts right in the center there. So it's going to look a lot more like a flame and a lot less like a real hard, like porcupine object that's lighting up outside the muzzle muzzle, you know. All right, so having a look at the materials here, what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to increase the density scale to 5, and as well as the emission, we're going to turn that all the way up to 10, okay? Now, the emission will basically make it, that's what's going to make it really, really bright. So that the actual object doesn't need to be lit by any lamps in order for you to see it. It would just automatically glow as part of the material properties. The density scale, that will actually just make it a lot more thicker than if it was set to the default 1. Now, the color here for the emission, that's going to define the color of the actual muzzle flash. So if we set that there to a sort of a yellowy, maybe a sort of slightly orangey color there. And yeah, let's render that now and let's see how that looks. Okay, so it's ray tree building. Let's have a look. Okay, so I mean, you can see you've got the flare there, but it looks more like a swarm of bees is escaping the gun. Now, the reason for that is if you go down here to the step size, that is what's defining sort of basically how noisy to make it. Because if you've got a scene with a lot of volumetric shading and things like that, it can take a lot of time to render. So by having that noisy sort of effect there, it's the more noisy it is, the faster it's going to render essentially. But that looks absolutely horrible. Like I said, it looks more like a swarm of bees. So let's go ahead and we're going to turn that down. Now, the lower that you set this step size, that's actually going to make the actual shading is actually going to be more clear. Okay, so it's sort of like reverse of what you'd think. But basically, yeah, the lower you set that, the clearer it's going to look. So let's try setting that to a 0.005. Let's render that now and let's see how that looks now. Okay, so it's looking a lot better, and actually for some reason the render time is actually quicker than what it was set to before. But there you go. You might actually even try and set that to even lower if you wanted to, if you want to get it really clear. But I think having a little bit of noise there actually helps. Kind of makes it look a little bit cool, like this sort of some powdery substance being ejected out of the gun as it's fired. So that can look kind of cool as well. Now, once you've got the material done, that's all finished now. You don't really need to make any further changes to that. What we're going to do now is we're going to start with the animating, okay? Because obviously if you would have rendered this into an animation, every single frame you would have this big muzzle flare sticking out the front there, okay? Obviously you want it to be turning on and off in time with the gun firing, okay? Now, before you get into this, it's important to work out how fast the gun in real life, how fast that actually fires, okay? So to do that, you need to go to your internet browser and do a search for the gun that you are creating. So I'm doing the M4 carbine. If you have a look on Wikipedia, it's usually got all the details there that you'll need. You need to find out the rate of fire, okay? So as you can see here for this M4 carbine, the rate of fire is 700 to 950 rounds per minute, okay? So what I'm going to do is work out, first of all, how much that is per second. So I'm going to just going by 700 as the minimum amount. I'm going to divide that by 60, and that will tell us there's roughly 12 rounds fired every second, okay? That's quite fast. In actual fact, if you consider, that if a magazine holds 30 rounds generally, the gun would be empty in less than 3 seconds, which pretty much makes my entire short film complete farce. But anyway, so there's roughly 12 rounds fired per second. Now, in filmmaking, generally the frame rate that you use, for your video is generally going to be 24 frames per second. Okay, so 24 frames per second. There's 12 rounds fired. That means that every 2 frames there is going to be 1 round fired. So every 2 frames, this little porcupine objects here, they need to light up, then disappear, then light up again. Okay, so how we're going to make this happen is we're going to go up here to the density field. So this is the field that is basically going to define when it appears and when it doesn't, okay? So we're going to move, first of all, go to frame 2, and we're going to go hover over the density field and then press I, okay? And that'll place a keyframe. Then go back to frame 1, change the density to 0, and then press I again. So now if we have a look at our F curve here, I just zoom in a little bit so you can see what we're doing. You can see it goes from density 0 to density 1, like so. Okay, so the next step then is to make it repeat. Now, in I think Blender 2.49, you use like an option to extrapolate it or something like that. But in Blender 2.5, it's a lot easier. All you need to do is press N to bring up this little sidebar here, and then you add it as a modifier. So you go here and you press cycles, okay? So you can see that now those 2 frames there have now been repeated over the entire animation. Now the problem is that with it setting up as a keyframe on each frame as situated there, as it goes along through the animation, you can see that the density doesn't change, because on every single frame it's landing on that bottom frame there, which is 0. So the density is never actually changing. Now, although we calculated all that that stuff with the calculator before, one thing to note is that although the gun will be firing 12 times every single second, the camera will not pick up every single muzzle flash. Okay, so if you have a look at real footage in movies or anything like that, when you see a gun firing, a lot of the times you'll only see it like every I don't know, 6th or 7th shot, something like that. It appears very randomly, and that's because the flash appears for such a small fraction of a second that it often doesn't hit one of those 24 frames in the second, if that makes sense. So this whole pattern here can be broken up very randomly to basically, I mean, we don't want it to appear every 12 times in every second. We want it to appear a lot less than that, like possibly 3 or maybe 5 times in a second. But we need to make it appear very, very randomly, okay? So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a keyframe down here, okay, like this. So we've just got short little spikes going up throughout our timeline here. Okay, now, the next thing I'm going to show you, if we go here to the modifier stacker, we're going to add a noise modifier, okay? So this is another feature in Blender 2.5 that's been added. So that creates random noise, okay, which is essentially exactly what we want for our animation here. Now there's fields here that allow you to scale just how much randomization we want, and you can actually change the blend type as well. So if we set that to subtract, then it's going to subtract it from the actual keyframed animation there. So these are just a few things you can do to help break it up and make it look more random than usual. And in fact, if we set that right down like that, you'll notice that a lot of those bumps are underneath it. But then if we just increase this one here, you basically want it so you've just got a few small peaks popping up like so. Now the other thing you're going to want to do is actually break up this now let's see, these keyframe values here, okay? So you've got one on frame 1, another one there, and another one there on 2. Now if you, with that pattern there on frame 1 and then frame 2, I mean, it takes a little bit while to understand it, but once you've played with it a bit, you'll understand what I mean. But having it on just frame 1 and then frame 2, it will repeat that same pattern all throughout the animation. And I've experimented with, you know, possibly hundreds of different ways to sort of make it sort of all broken up and things like that. The best way I can sort of come up with is to create make this keyframe go on a single digit frame, so sort of like it's sort of in the middle of 2 frames, and then that will randomize it for the rest of the animation. So I mean, by default you can only move this on whole frames like that, like it's automatically snapping to each frame. So you need to go here to the nearest frame and then select no auto snap, okay? And then what this will do, if I just move this one sort of out the way, we can then move this along, and I'm going to try and position this just on this 1.770 mark. I mean, this doesn't need to be exact. I'm just sort of mixing it up, but basically you just want it to make it appear a lot more randomly. So this is just the ways that we're going to go about doing that. And also, the smaller you make that spike there, also the less frames you're going to see as well. This middle keyframe there. I'm hoping this all makes sense, by the way. But basically, the way you want it, if you just focus on this density field here, now where I press Alt-A, you'll notice there it's sort of pulsing, going up a little bit down. It's a little bit random in the way it appears. You can experiment with the way that appears and the way it fires. There's certain options in the noise field here. You can change the depth. That might randomize it a little bit as well. Things like that can help, help just break it up a little bit. The other thing I'm going to do is, going back to this modifier field, if we set up a limits modifier and then check minimum, that will ensure that nothing stays underneath the 0 line. That can help you sort of read it a little bit better as well, sort of grasp what's going on a little bit better. So yeah, so I think we've got a sort of a more randomized pattern for our firing muzzle flash now. So that's going all pretty well. The other thing that I'm going to do, and this is a problem that you'll find if you have it just static like this, the viewer will notice that this muzzle flash here remains exactly the same shape and size on every single frame. So you need to randomize the scale of these objects, okay? Now the easiest way to do that is again by using that that noise modifier that we created before, okay? So I've got things popping up all over the place here. The screen's sort of getting hard to understand, but with that porcupine little flash object there selected, press I and then select scaling, okay? And this will, along here, you've now got your density and you've also got these scaling options here as well. Don't get too confused in this. It's an optional step, but it'll really create a more randomized and a more unique patterns on each frame. So it's I think it's very, very important yeah. So with this this X scale selected there, what I'm going to do is add a noise modifier. I'm going to shrink this down to something like that. And we're also going to turn this field here. That's very, very important as well. Let's see if we just pull this out a little bit. Let's have a look at how, if we just zoom in here a little bit, you can see how much effect it's having over everything. So that's wobbling around a little bit. That's kind of cool. Now that's only happening on the X scale. So here's a quick little trick. If we actually, before we do that, with that selected, you'll notice that as the scaling thing goes beneath that 0 line, so you can see there's that hard line there. When these things go beneath it, it's actually going to shrink lower than what the default setting was, okay? The scaling, which we don't want, okay? So again, that limiting modifier, that's going to come in handy. If we just check that, that means that the smallest that this object can go is what it was at its default state, which was 0. So it's pretty much nothing, in that it can't go any smaller than that. So make sure you have that checked. Then once you've, and you can turn up the depth here as well, just to get some more randomized patterns. But once you've got a sort of a thing that you want, if you press here and select copy the F modifier, you can go here to each of these scales, and you can select that. And now you can see that our muzzle flash over here is now wobbling around randomly. Probably not as random as I would like, but you know, it's pretty good. In fact, it seems to get more random over time for some reason. I'm not sure why that's worked out that way, but anyway, that's actually not that bad. That's pretty good. So I'm going to go now and do the same for these other ones here, just very, very quickly, so as not to bore you. So I'm doing it for this one. Let's have a look. Oh, what's going on? Okay. And now let's select noise. I find if you turn it down to something low like that, turn up this depth as well. Let's just see if that moves. That doesn't seem to be moving at all. Let me just have a look how it looks on the X and Z. Yeah, so that's very, very small movements. So again, you might want to just turn up that scaling there, and that's going to give you a lot more different movements. Again, I'm going to change the not cycles, the limits. There we go. Set the minimum as 0, and then copy that to the other ones as well. So that's not bad. One thing you might want to do also is to just change the phase amount, because you can see how they were sort of jumping around in sync together. But if you change this phase amount, that's basically the seed amount. If you're familiar with particles, the phase amount is basically the seed. So that'll just make it more random to the rest of the objects. So you can see now you've got a lot more randomized pattern than the rest of it. And it's increasing over time for some reason. I'm not sure why that is happening, but anyway, it's kind of cool. Alright, so I'm going to copy this, and I'm just going to do the same for this one here. Paste. Oh, there you go. It's pasted on all of them. I didn't know you could do that. There you go. Learn something new even when you're doing a tutorial. Paste. Alright, cool. So it's automatically done that for all of them. And I'm just going to go through and just make sure that they're all just a little bit more unique than each other, just by changing that phase value there. Just anything. And you can see when I move it, those little lines there just squiggle around a little bit, just showing you that it's changed. So now if you play this through now, you can see that all the objects now are jumping around randomly, and when they do appear, when the density is set to a plus or positive value, it will be a different shape than what it has been before. So that will really add some randomness. That's one of the biggest problems with creating muzzle flashes, I think, is just getting it so that it doesn't look so uniform on each and every single frame, because it is very noticeable to the viewer. That was one of the biggest critiques I had when I created my short film, was that everyone said that every single frame the muzzle flash looked the same. But yeah, thankfully in Blender 2.5 you've got all these cool options with noise and things like that, and that really helps. Okay, now the one final thing we're going to do before we actually get to compositing, which is where all the magic is going to happen, we're going to add a lamp, because obviously these muzzle flashes, we want them to give off a light, so we want it to actually light up the gun as well as the rest of the scene. Okay, so I've just added a lamp here, and I've placed it directly inside. I might just move this just for now. I've placed it directly inside that big muzzle flash there. I'm then going to turn on sphere and just change this distance down a little bit there, just to something like that. So you've got the edge of the sphere with just part of that gun appearing in there as well. I'm going to change the energy value to a 2.3 and make the color a nice yellowy color like so. So now if we just have a look at how that looks now, let's just try it, how it sees with the muzzle flash there. So if we render this, so you should now see a glow from the muzzle flash appearing on the rest of the rifle as well. So there you go. So that's looking pretty good. Now the next step we need to do is we need to add that randomized pattern to the that lamp as well. So the way we're going to do that is with on frame. Let's see if we go to the beginning. By the way, quick shortcut: if you want to go to the first frame of the animation, shift left arrow will take you there, and the end is shift right arrow. Just a quick tip there. So if we go to frame 2, select I for keyframe, frame 1, and then I again, and then let's try cycling that with this modifier. Now, the glow itself doesn't need to be that randomized because a lot of the times you'll see in movies the glow from the gun will actually appear, but you won't see the flare, the actual muzzle flare. So it looks like something's just lighting up the gun. So it does sort of have a different randomized pattern to the actual flare itself. So don't worry if it doesn't match up exactly with the flare. In fact, there was a bug, I think, in Blender 2.49 where I was trying to get them matched up for my short film, and I just couldn't actually physically do it. It wouldn't let me actually get them all matched up, which was really annoying. But anyway, it turns out it doesn't need to actually be that doesn't need to be perfect, because then when everything's rapidly firing like that, the viewer's not going to notice it different anyway. And yeah, this will just make it more unique to how it appears on film as well. So let's just see if I can just grab that middle keyframe. Come on, let me click it. Hey, there we go. Let's just drag that out. All right. So we want it so we've just got some of these spikes just hitting the top one. And again, if you had that negative value there, then that's going to create negative light on the rest of the gun. So that's going to be a real pain. So again, make sure you've got a limiting modifier added and selected as minimum, and that way it's never going to fall below 0. So you can see how that limit modifier is very helpful for animations. But there you go. So once you've got that, that's pretty much it. I'm just going to quickly... just move this along. I'm going to quickly duplicate this 3 times just for our little mini flames over here. And actually, with the light inside of these little porcupine things, it's actually going to light up as well. It's going to light up because it's volumetrics. It's actually going to light up the object. So that's kind of a cool little effect there that you'll have as well. I'm going to make, because these are smaller, I'm going to make the sphere distance value a lot smaller as well. Let's just position this one there, like so. And you'll notice that they'll all have that same pattern that we've already done because I've just duplicated it, so it's copied the same animation data. I'm just going to make these 3 ones here, just share the same lamp data, so it's got that 3 there next to it. So if you want to change the values of any of those in the future, then you can, and they'll all reflect the change. But anyway, let's have a look at how this looks now. If I just find a frame where the actual flare is appearing, just having a look here, the density. Alright, so that one's that's looking pretty good there on frame 41. Let's have a look at how it looks whilst rendered. Okay, so everything seems to have worked out exactly the way we planned it. So you've got the flare coming out there, the one's coming out the top, and the glow is now reflecting onto the gun as well. So now we can get into the good stuff, and that is the compositing. So we can give it that nice glow that you'll see a lot in Hollywood films, things like that, and basically just in real life. So anyway, what we need to do is, what we're going to do is we're going to apply like a glow and glare effects to sort of mimic the look of like a camera glare and glow and things like that, as well as the sort of like there's air particles in the air that they're lighting up. So we want these changes to affect only the flare itself, not the rest of the gun. So first of all, we need to move it to a separate layer. I'm going to move mine to layer 3 because I've got some stuff on layer 2. You probably don't. But yeah, and then we need to go to the layer options here. And because this is going to be our main layer here, I'm just going to call this gun. So that's the gun layer. And I'm going to deselect layer 3. Okay, so that layer there won't render the flare. I'm then going to create a new render layer. I'm going to call this flare. And I'm only going to select layer 3. So now that render layer is just going to render the flare, not the gun or anything else. And we're also important you check all Z. And that will make sure that where that barrel there is overlapping the flare, that you won't see the flare showing up on top of the barrel where it shouldn't be. It's showing up behind. But yeah, basically it'll make it look correct essentially. Alright, so once you've done that, it's then a matter of flipping over to the compositor. The quickest way to do that is to press Control left arrow. Okay, so once you're in the compositor, I've got like a vector blur there. That's just so that the bullets, when you see over here that they're blurring, but that wasn't part of this tutorial, so I won't go into that. But what we're going to do is we're going to add a new render layer, and we're going to select from this layer drop down flare. Okay, let's select view output. You won't actually see anything there. The reason for that is once you've done all that layer, things like that, you do need to re-render the scene because Blender won't automatically pick up the changes. So once you've changed anything to layers, things like that, you need to re-render it, and then you can start the compositing. Okay, so now here, now you can see just on that part there, you can see the barrel showing through there. It's sort of blocking out the flame behind it. That's because we pressed, what did we press? I forgot. Oh yeah, Alt Z. Anyway, I'm confusing you now. I shouldn't keep talking. All right. So to add the glow effect, what we're going to do is we're going to add a blur node. We're going to change the type to fast Gaussian. Now I'm going to make this just sort of a slight, like a soft glow like that. It's sort of close to where the flare is. And I'm also going to create another glow effect, okay? So this is going to be a lot bigger, this one. Now the reason for a bigger one is that this flare that I'm creating is going to sort of mimic the effect of sort of like particles are in the air. Sort of lighting up everything around the gun. And it's going to be a very, very big, very soft glow, okay? So I've now got 2 glow effects there. I'm now going to combine the 2 of them with a mix node effect. Just have a viewer node so we can see what we're doing. And select screen for the type and FAC value 1. Now I think the way I've set this up, might flip those around. Now I want that big soft glow there. I don't want that one to be too powerful. Just very, very slight, very subtle effect. So I think that's working pretty well so far. The next thing I'm going to add is a glare effect. So let's add a glare node. And for the type, I'm going to change it to ghosts. Okay. Let's set the output for that. Let's have a look at the viewer. Now what this will do, this sort of mimics sort of a lens flare, okay? So this is very, very subtle. You don't want it to be too heavy. I think a lot of compositors go overboard when they see this effect. But yeah, it just sort of, it happens a lot in nighttime scenes. It's explained a lot more in the wow factor, but in nighttime scenes with like flare and fire effects like that, you'll often see, you know, like that lens flare, like it's sort of duplicating, mirroring itself across the scene. So that's what this glare node does. So let's, okay, all right, let's try and combine this with our glow effect. Like such, and I'm going to turn down, yeah, there we go. So now, but by setting that one underneath it, you can then change how much that glare is showing through, just by changing that FAC value there. And if you turn that down, and that color changing thing, then that's gonna affect that. Maybe turn this threshold down. All right, then we get sort of, okay, now we're sort of more to what we want. And I might make that really small, because again, you know, that's a very big effect. You don't want that, you know, you don't want that showing through too much. Whoa, that's nothing. Yeah, something like that. That could look nice. So I think that's what I'm going to go with. And then once we've got all those glare and glow effects, we need to combine them all together with this original flare effect. So I'm just adding another mix node here. And then let's have a look with a viewer node. And there you go. So that's how essentially the muzzle flare is going to look. I might just set that to add so we don't get that blue weird thing in the middle there. But yeah, that's basically how that muzzle flare is going to look. And then if we combine all that with the original gun, just by adding another mix node, combining that together like so. And there you go. That is the finished result. So if you rendered that now into an animation, you would see it rapidly firing, the lights turning on and off, and yeah, you can really go overboard. For my example, I had, of course, those bullets spewing out the side. I also used the smoke simulator to have smoke seeping out of both the ejection port as well as the barrel where the fire is appearing. And also I made it so that the slide, the actual moving parts of the gun move rapidly in time with the bullets firing. So those are just a few little extra things that you can do to help, you know, bring the realism to your gun firing animation. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you got something from it, and I hope it's useful for when you're creating any action scenes or anything like that. Again, I'm always interested in seeing what you guys create with the tutorials. So if you make a cool animation or anything like that, be sure to post it in the comments fields underneath this tutorial, and I'd be very happy to see it. So that's all from me. Thanks very much for watching.